Good afternoon. How are you? Well, the temperature's in the 30s. This morning it was below freezing. So or freezing, I guess is a better way to put it. So it's a little chilly, and the sky has got that kind of snow gray look about it. But I'll be very surprised if we see any snow anytime soon. Not that I'm wishing for it, because it'd be inconvenient right now. It's good to be back, although we had a great time down in Richmond, and a combination personal event and escape celebration. So what's going on now? Well, let's go to the usual suspects, starting off with Trump. His lawyers apparently have submitted a request to the court to compel the government to give them information, a treasure trove of information gleaned from all sorts of security records and FBI records and so forth, that support the following proposition: that the election really was stolen, and therefore, as part of his defense, Trump's belief was reasonable, and since it was reasonable, he was acting in self-defense. And among the crazy ideas that he propounds in this motion by his lawyers, who submitted 70 pages of motion and 300 pages of reference material, he claims that, that entire demonstration at the Capitol, that was a sting operation. Now, this thing is a situation in which the government sort of sets you up. So he's trying to say that the government set him up by promoting this disturbance so that they could get Trump. Well, they didn't have to get Trump. He lost the election. And there's not any evidence to prove the assertion that there's any basis in fact that there was fraud in the election. And there is therefore no belief that there was fraud in the election. And his belief is equivalent to the example I've given before, like talking to my daughter when she was young, and it was a great song at the time. It's still a great song. It says, "I believe I could fly up into the sky," And I once gave an address as part of a forum with Ari Melber, and he let me finish up to answer a Republican who had talked about this belief system. And in that time, they were using belief as a reason to say, well, if he believed he wasn't bribing the head of the Ukrainian government, then he was okay. Well, that's nonsense. And my example was, I could say, I believe I could fly. And maybe I'd stand at the stage and try to lift myself up over the people. And I've told this story before, and the people in the front row sort of shunned the possibility. And I said, but I'm not delusional. I'm not delusional. And Trump is not delusional either, because Trump knows what he's saying is false, because we have so many people who've come to him and said, you lost. One can read the numbers. You could listen to the newspapers. You could crawl across the country and go to every goddamn election board in the nation and have confirmed for you there was no fraud. So what is the court going to do with this? Well, the government will oppose it, of course. And he'll say that we don't have any exculpatory information, which means we don't have any proof of what you say that would, as a result of a Supreme Court case, Brady against Maryland, require us to produce it to you. We don't have it, we don't believe it exists. And the court might say that's all the government has to do for its obligation, and that would be the end of it. If a judge thumbed through the 70 pages already today, she may tell her law clerks to write up a draft dismissing the request, and then go over it and issue it in about a week or so. Maybe she'll have oral argument. Come in here and tell me, where does this come from? Now, what does it sound like the government is doing? What did the lawyers do for Trump during the election? They went out and said to the court, the election was stolen. And every judge that heard it, I think it was 60 judges, said, no, forget about it. Didn't happen. And so they're doing the same thing that failed to find any fraud, to say there was fraud without evidence that there was fraud. How do you figure that? Now, I haven't studied the obvious lies that leap out at you, including the sting operation that he's claiming the FBI might have tried. And if I were the judge, and there were obvious ones in those 300 pages and in the 70 pages of motions, I would think long and hard about remonstrating against the lawyers who would bring such a BS motion. So I think that's something. Now, Trump's problems are not limited to the courtroom, but you should keep in mind that when Trump does something, what in the courtroom, he's campaigning. The way he looks at it is his campaign, political campaign, is his defense. His defense is his political campaign. And convicted or not, federally or state, he figures if he's in the White House, A, he can handle the federal cases, and then he'll do a number as best he can, improvising as he always does, with coercion and lies and false statements that he'll spew forth across the land like a spray of some odoriferous, cancerous substance. So that's his thing, doing that. And so he is working that, but he has to work it with the money that he gets. And there's been an interesting development. Now, I often say Koch, but I guess it's Koch. And the Koch brothers, and now it's one Koch, he is of the view that Nikki Haley is his candidate. And he said it, and he's going to devote funds to it. Now, you might say, how much could that be? Well, in the midterms, he spent $69 million. So it's not $100 to appear at an ice cream social. It's a significant amount of money and can make a difference in a campaign, particularly one at this stage, which is really, it's not grassroots, but it's closer to that, because we're going to these states with low turnout for primaries in the Republican Party to see who their presidential nominee should be. And so this can have a big effect. Also, if it makes her more visible as the logical alternative to Trump, and people who are uncomfortable with DeSantis as being too much like Trump, although, in my opinion, Haley is, well, what would you say? She's a seemingly more acceptable because her con is better. DeSantis doesn't have a good con, but she does. So that, I think that matters. And we'll have to wait and see how that works. Now, those of you who wonder about the health of America, I guess when I was 50, I was in a dental chair, and I was complaining to my dentist, is there something wrong with Irish teeth? And he says, no, John, we weren't meant to live past 50. So I should accept the fact that it's not that my teeth are soft or anything like that. It's that our entire body wasn't meant to live past 50. Well, I got news for you. CDC has come up with some figures talking about how long people will live. Now, women on the average are going to live to 80.2 years. Now, hold on to it, fellas. You baby boomers, you're probably past your expiration date, because it says that you may not live on the average past 74.8 years. So keep that in mind. You may be living on borrowed time. The Middle East, well, same old, same old. We hope to have some agreement to continue with hostages and that peace will break out. But at the same time, when anything positive is done, it seems that we inflame continuously what might otherwise be discussed. And so we have disgusted discussions with distrust at a high mark. And I don't know if they keep these people in two separate rooms and go back and forth trying to get them to move by inches to a place that could lead to peace. And then finally, how many meetings have you gone to in which you thought all the business could be completed in 5 minutes, but you take 3 hours to do it? Well, Congress is your cup of tea if you enjoy that. And what's the issue? The unsaintly Santos. He is no problem for the Democrats to expel or to censure or to do anything critical of the fact that he makes Pinocchio look like a piker. He lies about everything all the time. But the Republicans would like to keep him, I guess, so they have his vote. And if you're a defense attorney representing a congressman who's in a jam, one of your bargaining chips is to say, oh, I'll resign. Now, that's not going to go too long because next year, that's the election, and somebody else is probably geared up. The guy he beat with his lies the last time will very possibly be the successor to that seat. So, those are a couple of thoughts I have this day in my chilly neighborhood with the trees not bending or bowing to the cold or the occasional wind I've seen today. And so I say hello to you from my cathedral of trees, and I'll see you and talk to you tomorrow if I can. Bye-bye.